Welcome to Pod Me If You Can. I'm David Farrell, and today's film is from 1999. It is My Teacher's Wife, starring Jason London, Tia Carrere, and Jeffrey Tambor. On the cusp of adulthood, with SAT scores in hand, Todd Boomer, played by Jason London, is about to go off to Harvard. Christopher McDonald, who many would know as Shooter McGavin, plays his maths teacher, Roy Mueller, who's holding back his recommendation for Harvard due to bad maths grades. On top of that, his girlfriend Kirsten, played by Alexandra Lee, won't have sex with him. It's a real coming-of-age story. He has a chance meeting with Vicky, played by Tia Carrere, and that leads Todd to enlist her as a maths tutor so he can improve his grades. His father, played by Jeffrey Tambor, is thrilled because he wants his son to go to Harvard and has for many years. We see a very mismatched marriage between Vicky and Mr. Mueller. The filmmakers do their best to make him seem jealous. He waits up for her to get home suspiciously, and he has zero interest in her hobby of metalwork. In contradiction to that, Todd, he has an artistic habit of drawing, and the two of them have, I suppose, this artistic flair. He's also very conflicted about whether or not he wants to go to Harvard. He has an instant crush on Vicky, as many would with Tia Carrere as your maths tutor, and he's no good at hiding it, as probably most teenage boys with game are not. And they succumb to it because she's in an unhappy marriage and he's a horny teenager, despite their pre-existing partners. You can imagine this entire film from the front cover, pretty much. Just add like an angsty teenage soundtrack. You've got it. The whole thing's there. It's more of a drama than a comedy. I was expecting a comedy for some reason, but his friend Paul Faber, who's played by Zach Orth, he does really physical comedy, and that really made it feel like it was supposed to be a comedy the entire time, but it's quite dramatic in points, and none of the jokes really landed for me. Maybe they were better in 99. Todd asks Vicky at one point, "Why do you stay with your husband?" And she says, "That's a good question. Let's not talk about this." And sort of this lack of real depth to the characters and lack of depth to her and the marriage. I mean, sort of saying he wasn't always like this doesn't tell us why you married him. It becomes really one-sided. So we feel better about their affair. And even after he finds out who she's married to, he keeps fooling around with her, which is an odd choice because they really paint him as an honest character. And you would think that she would be able to figure out, because it's sort of a small town, that her husband teaches maths, and she is, able to maths tutor this kid who's at the age that would be in her husband's class. The pieces don't fall into place right away for her, which is odd. They have this sex scene. The DVD does say low-level sex scenes, gang. And they have this sex scene where Jason London sleeps with Tia Carrere, and it makes him look like a stud. Now, apparently he's very inexperienced. I've gotten the impression that he's a virgin because he's trying to get his girlfriend to have sex with him and she's saying she's not ready. It doesn't completely say that he hasn't had sex before, but it really helps to glorify that kind of student-teacher fantasy that, again, they're really painting in the corner of the box here. They never make out in a classroom like that. Ultimately that's the selling point of the film, though, these student-teacher fantasies. So we get to this ending that is very confrontational with this teacher. However, it comes off as really underwhelming, and for his infidelity and her infidelity, they both get off very easily. Roy Mueller is not the threat he is painted as in the scenes he's in. But I was wondering what the ultimate happy ending was supposed to be for these characters. I mean, should they both ditch their partners and run away together? The director is sort of justifying the infidelity because she's hot, which doesn't really endear us to the lead. His friend, the comic relief, really points out what a jerk he's been becoming as well, which is the point of view of the viewers. It's a pretty average film. There's a few redeeming features, but it's pretty forgettable because you don't care about the characters and you're not invested in the love story. It would have been nice to have seen the teacher confront him more. He plays this mentor character throughout the film. He's pushing him to excel at maths, and then for him to have this ultimate betrayal, it sort of makes a really anticlimactic, two-dimensional kind of storyline at the end of everything. There's also a really unfortunate joke, and I know it's 1999, but There's a little bit of a terrorism joke. He says at the 4-minute mark of this film, he's graded his test and he says, "You were flying high. Did you hit an air pocket? Did you fall asleep at the controls? Is there a terrorist involved?" And then he says, "You're going down in flames." So, it's a bit of an unfortunate plain terrorist type reference, which I didn't appreciate. This film was also known as Bad with Numbers. So, if you have one girlfriend and you add another person's wife, what does that give you? Trouble, of course. People make mistakes, and especially when they're young, and people have affairs. So I'm not defending that. That's nature and things happen. But, in this film, so much gets made of the fact that he's an honest young man that it's very out of character for him to cheat at all. Also, he's painted as a good student, so the only reason he's failing must be because he draws too much, or because they need to create a situation where he's failing so he can ultimately meet and sleep with Vicky, the teacher's wife. It's kind of a flawed premise, I suppose. It's not sold to us well enough to make us believe that A, he's failing, or B, that he wouldn't be honest about it and stop the affair when he finds out because he's such an honest kid. Jeffrey Tambor doesn't have much to do. If you're interested, he's playing a very minor character as the dad who flip-flops between his support based on Tia Carrere being hot. He has to quiz and test her to make sure she does know maths and she's not some, floozy or prostitute or something, because his mind jumps all over the place. This film was due for release in 1995, but the collapse of a studio left it shelved till 1999 when it was finally released on DVD. So guys, I know if you've seen the cover, you've seen Tia Carrere, I'm going to leave you with what you came here to see, which is all the shots of Tia Carrere in a bra, because the sex scenes and nudity here are almost non-existent, but here are the highlights. It's not the film that the cover art would lead you to believe.
Thanks for watching. If you like what you see, please hit the subscribe button. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Check out our podcast at www.podmeifyoucan.com.